And we are live.
Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to the November 4th regular meeting of the East Hampton Town Board. Carol, would you please read the roll call?
Councilwoman Burke Gonzalez.
Present.
Councilman Leese.
Present.
Councilwoman Overby.
Here.
Councilman Bragman.
Here.
Supervisor Van Scoyac.
Present. Please join me in saying the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic which stands one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Today we have 5 public hearings, which will be followed by a public portion where any member of the public may address the board on any topic. We ask that you keep your comments to 3 minutes or less. That will also be followed by resolutions. But before we get started, we have our town crier, Hugh King, here with us today.
Hi. Board members, thank you. Last time, I'm sorry I didn't make the last meeting. I had the date wrong, and you can't cancel a doctor's visit. So we were talking about the East Hampton Historical Society, and it's the 100th anniversary of the East Hampton Historical Society this year, and 4 board members were going to find out something about the East Hampton Historical Society, and then Councilwoman Gonzalez was going to find something out about the Amagansett Historical Society. So we could start with, can we start with Councilman Bragman?
Sure.
Okay.
I wanted to ask you, I found it actually a little hard to get detailed information in my research, but who was the curator and originator of Clinton Academy as a museum?
Who was the originator and curator?
The curator and the originator of putting a museum in Clinton Academy.
Well, I'm going to give you some other information that won't answer the question. In 1921, the East Hampton Historical Society was formed, and one of the first things they did was they took Clinton Hall at that time. If you remember, you don't remember this, of course. If you looked at Clinton Academy now and you look to the left, there's an open area where there's a garden there. Well, that's where the hall was attached to it. There was a 400-seat auditorium there. And what the Historical Society did is they tore that down and they put Clinton Academy back in its original configuration from 1784. Now, one of the people who started the Historical Society was Leonard G. Woodhouse. And he was assisted, the other person who was involved was a man named Gustav Buch, and he's the person who bought Home Sweet Home along with his wife and restored it. That's my answer.
That's pretty good. I was reading about Mr. and Mrs. Lorenzo Woodhouse, who were the original, who brought Clinton Academy back to its original configuration. And the first president of the Historical Society was George Eldridge.
Oh, George Eldridge, the builder.
He was elected in 1921. And then his daughter was Mary Eldridge, and she became the curator and the originator of a museum in Clinton Academy.
Oh, wow.
And that
I didn't know that.
I'm happy to hear that.
I didn't know that. That's great.
So, all right. Well, then the research paid off.
It did. Thank you.
Thank you.
Councilwoman Overby?
So I also was researching the East Hampton Historical Society. And the first evidence I could find of the existence of the society was in the paper when it was announced in August of 1921, August 12th, the 1921 edition announced that, quote, it is to elect officers. The meeting was held at Clinton Academy on the afternoon of August 13th. The directors of the society were L.E. Woodhouse, N.C. Osborne, J.G. Thorpe, and George A. Eldridge, J.E. Hunting, S.C. Hedges, and C.R. Slight. The announcement goes on to say that, quote, the board of directors will hold office until the society's annual meeting, which may be called at the will of the board. An important matter which will be acted upon at the Saturday afternoon meeting will be the leasing of the academy from the trustees for a period of 99 years at a nominal fee.
That's right. There are still trustees of Clinton Academy. There's not many of them left.
So in 1922, there also was an announcement that the directors of the East Hampton Historical Society, lessees of the Clinton Academy, they have arranged to have the academy open every day except Sunday during the summer season of 1922 from 3 to 6 p.m. and welcome all visitors at these hours. The daily and weekly newspapers are on file in the academy and free for all. And the caretaker will be pleased to show those interested through the historical old building. The academy can be rented for literary, educational, or artistic purposes at a charge of $2 per afternoon and $5 per event during the per evening for an evening event. And you need to apply to George A. Eldridge and Cornelius S.R. Slight. And again, the announcements go on every summer for the next few years. And Mr. Eldridge was indeed the president, and Mr. Slight was the secretary. So one of the things, and I have to thank you, Hugh, for giving us some of these assignments, because I then get to find out about Mr. Eldridge, who was more than just a builder. And more than just someone who started the Historical Society, but he was also a town assessor in 1921. He was an elder in the Presbyterian Church. He was a director of the East Hampton National Bank, and he owned a building on Main Street called the McAuliffe Block that housed several different businesses.
Oh, wow.
So, and even in today's Star, there is a reference to Mr. Eldridge in their section item of the week from the East Hampton Library Long Island collection. And in 1998, Mr. Eldridge built an addition to a house on James Lane called the Chalet. And in their column on that the library put together for this week's edition of the Star, they talk about the Chalet and how Mr. Eldridge built the addition. So he was quite something.
Yes, I think it's 1898.
Yeah. Oh, did I say 90? Yes, 1898. Sorry. I understood.
Yes, he built, I think, a lot of the houses up in Lily Pond Lane and in Cottage Avenue, too.
Yeah.
Wow, I didn't know all those other things about him, though. That's
So it's nice to know, the history of folks. I don't hear his name often, so it was really nice to know how important he was to the town of East Hampton and to the village.
Thank you. Supervisor Van Scoyac?
Yes. Hugh, can you tell me which East Hampton historical property has a Christmas ghost and who that ghost is believed to be?
No, and I didn't know these are going to be questions to me.
I didn't think they were.
I didn't either.
Okay, well, let me present based on the form of a question. The Osborne Jackson House, which dates back to 1723, is in the heart of the village, and it was the home of the Osborne family for 6 generations until it was given to the society back in the 1960s. And annually, the Historical Society decorates the home in 18th and 19th century linens and heirloom goblets and whatnot, silver pieces and decorations. And one year at 6 p.m. at dinner time, the alarm at the Osborne Jackson house began to ring. The police and security companies came and responded and found that a motion sensor had gone off, even though the building was unoccupied and closed up. The alarm was reset the next evening at 6 p.m. Again, rang. Police came, nothing detected. And this went on multiple times, and it's become a routine. Apparently, during the holiday season at 6 p.m., the motion detector and bells all go off. And so some have speculated that this is due to the haunting of the phantom of Frances Hunting, Aunt Fanny, who was the spinster sister of Mrs. Mary Osborne, and that they occupied the house in the mid-19th centuries. Fanny was a beloved citizen of the house, although no longer able to walk. She was visited by many boarders, well-wishers, and people within the community. And so it's thought that, and there have been people who have said that they've seen the visage of someone in Victorian era clothing, an apparition in the house. And again, it's suspected to be Fanny.
Oh, wow. The Historical Society received the house in 1975 from the Jackson family. That's why it's called the Osborne Jackson House. And Aunt Fanny had a diary that she kept, because she, as you said, she couldn't get around, so she sat in the front window and wrote down everything that was going on in the town or in the village at the time, and that is in the library.
Wow.
That diary. Well, where did you find all that information?
That is part of an article that appeared in the Star, written by Colette Gilbert.
Oh,
and
okay.
That was back in December of 2020.
Wow, thank you.
Colette wrote that. So
all right.
that's what I have today.
Thank you. Okay, Councilman Lees.
Yeah, thank you very much to you. I actually, we had another phone caller in that requested that we also added in the Springs Historical Society. So I wrote a little piece on them, if you don't mind.
No, that's perfect. I was going to talk about it, but go ahead.
Okay, all right. Well, we'll see how I do then. The Springs Historical Society was organized in 1975 by a few Springs residents to collect and preserve information and material particularly relevant to Springs and in the area of town of East Hampton. Membership is open to anyone wishing to support the organization and its activities. Society prevents programs on topics related to Springs, collects and preserves documents, photographs from the area, and operates the Springs Community Library. The Society keeps its records in the Ambrose Parsons House, which also serves as the Springs Community Library. The building itself is owned by the town of East Hampton. While the library was created in 1980, membership is open and willing to anyone wishing to support the organization and its activities. One of those most recent activities was from October 21st, which was Spring Snapshots, The Legend of Goody Garlic. The membership for the library and the Historical Society is $15 a year. You can belong to both for $25 per year. The library and the Springs Historical Society, as mentioned, was housed in the Ambrose Parsons House, which was generously willed to the town of East Hampton by its owner, Elizabeth Parker Anderson, who lived from 1893 to 1975 upon her death, and was to be used as a library for the people of Springs. Professionally known as Elizabeth Parker, she was an accomplished painter who lived and worked in Springs beginning in 1950. A dedicated member of the East Hampton community, and in 1957, she co-founded with fellow artists John Little and Alfonso Osorio the Signa Gallery in East Hampton, the first commercial gallery devoted to abstract art. The house was originally built in the late 1700s by Ambrose Parsons. Several fires damaged it. The building in the early 1800s, the house was rebuilt in 1851. The kitchen now serves as the library's children's room and thought to be the oldest part of the house. In 1995, the Ambrose Parsons House was listed in the New York State and National Registers of Historical Places. And Ms. Parsons also inaugurated the art auction scholarship program for Springs students and was a past president of the Springs Improvement Society. Anyone who want to contact the Springs Historical Society to become a member or just for visiting or go to the library, please contact them at 631-324-3165 or email them at springslibrary1@outlook.com at various hours during the week. Please check their website.
Wow, that's it. You did it, Councilman Lees. Thank you so much. That's very, very comprehensive. And one of the people who really helped the Springs Historical Society through the years was Carlton Kelsey. He was on their board and he gave a lot of programs. You know, when this pandemic, if it ever goes away, the Springs Historical Society used to sponsor talks at Ashwa Hall and at the Springs Chapel. So hopefully we'll be able to get back doing that. But thank you. They certainly deserve a huge mention. And now we go to the Amagansett Historical Association. Councilwoman Gonzalez.
Okay, so the Amagansett Historical Association is dedicated to preserving the cultural heritage of the hamlet of Amagansett for the benefit of the local community, scholars and students, and the general public that visits the area. The organization was founded in 1964 to purchase, save, and preserve the 1725 Miss Amelia Cottage, as a large supermarket and parking lot had been planned for that site. The association collects items of local provenance, including carriages, furnishings, letters, and other items such as early photographs, so that a record of the hamlet's rural past will be preserved. The main focus is on the period from 1680 to 1925. The 1.3-acre site currently contains the 1725 Miss Amelia Cottage, the circa 1850 Leicester Barn, and the post and beam Richard S. Jackson Carriage House. The property is listed on the state and national registers of historic places. And now a little bit about Miss Amelia Cottage. Mary Amelia Skellinger lived 1841 to 1930, was the last member of her family to live in the 1725 house built by Jacob Skellinger. Miss Amelia was a descendant of Jacob, the Dutch founder of Amagansett. In 1794, the cottage was moved from its original location to higher ground. 2 teams of oxen hauled the house 300 yards along Main Street, which was a dirt path, to its present spot. Miss Amelia never married and lived without electricity or running water until 5 years before her death. The cottage is open to the public as a museum, and the association was also instrumental in getting Main Street established as an official historic district in 2000.
Wow, that's great. And this is how that happened. In 1964, Bob Morse and Bob Winslow owned a grocery store. It was about where Inner Sleeve Records is in Amagansett.
Right.
Owned by a former Spring School student, by the way, or run by one. And they wanted to expand. So they purchased the area up where Miss Amelia's cottage was, and they wanted to put the new IGA there. Well, you can imagine what happened. That's when the Historical Association was formed. And much to their credit, Bob Winslow and Bob Moore said, okay. And that's why the IGA wound up where it is today. Okay, now next time, Veterans Day would have already passed. Now, I want to thank the board for naming the park on Abrams Path for Mr. Lee Hayes, the Tuskegee Airman. Besides his service to the country and the quiet, dignified character that he was, his story, unfortunately, mirrors what happened to many African-American men and women after serving in the war, World War II, when they came back. They still had trouble capturing part of the American dream. And Mr. Hayes' story is reminiscent of that. He was interviewed in 1998 by Julia Mead as part of the 350th anniversary. And there's a transcript of that interview in the Long Island Room, and there's a film in the the LTV archives. I suggest anybody who's interested in Mr. Hayes or African-American history to get that. So what we could do next time is we could all find a veteran to talk about. If Councilwoman Overby and Councilwoman Gonzalez could find a woman to honor and research, and then Councilman Bragman and Supervisor Van Scoyac and Councilman Lease find someone else, I'm going to do Thomas Jefferson Davis, okay? So the next time we meet, which is the third Thursday, we could all talk about a veteran. How's that?
Sounds great.
That's great. So we'll see you on November 18th then.
You will see me. Yes, I'm writing the date down now. Thank you all. Thank you all. Great
Thanks,
research. Great
Thank you.
research.
Thank you so much. Be well. Best to Loretta.
Thank you.
So at this point, Carol, if you would read the first public hearing notice.
First, I'll read the COVID disclosure for all the hearings. Please note that due to the public health and safety concerns related to COVID-19, the town board is not expected to meet in person at the time of the hearing. Pursuant to New York law, Chapter 417 of the laws of 2021, Part E, which authorizes, notwithstanding the provisions of Article 7 of the Public Offices Law to the contrary, political subdivisions to permit any public body to hold meetings remotely without a public in-person access by conference call or similar service, provided that the public has the ability to view or listen to such proceedings and that such meetings are recorded and later transcribed. This public hearing of the town board can be held via video conferencing with a transcript provided at a later date pursuant to such authority. The public can watch the public hearing live on local TV channel 22 and live online from the public meeting link on the LTV website. If any interested members of the public would like to provide comments on this matter and the financing thereof, comments can be called in during the meeting. The conference number for such purpose is 351-888-6331. Written comments and or questions may also be submitted via email to the town clerk at the following email address: cbrennan@ehamptony.gov. Said comments and or questions will be considered at the public hearing, provided that they are submitted by email no later than 9 a.m. on the day of the public hearing or submitted via telephone by way of conference number. A transcript will be prepared of the public hearings, and a copy shall be filed with the town clerk and placed upon the town's website, and additional comments will be accepted in writing by the town clerk or by mail to the town clerk at 159 Panago Road, East Hampton, provided the same are received within 1 week of the posting of the public hearing transcript. Please check the meeting agenda posted on the town's website for further instructions for any changes to the instructions to access the public hearing or for updated information. Notice is hereby given that the preliminary budget of the town of East Hampton, Suffolk County, New York for the fiscal year beginning January 1, 2022 has been completed and filed in the office of the town clerk of said town at Town Hall, 159 Panago Road, East Hampton, where it is available for inspection by any interested person during regular business hours of 9 to 4, exclusive of legal holidays. Further notice is hereby given that the town board of the town of East Hampton will meet and review said preliminary budget and hold a public hearing thereon on Thursday, November 4th, 2021 at 2 p.m. or as soon thereafter as this matter may be heard in favor or against any item or items therein contained. And further notice is hereby given pursuant to Section 108 of the Town Law of the State of New York that the following are proposed yearly salaries of town officials of the town, to wit, the supervisor, $118,075, 4 town council persons, $73,798 each, 2 town justices at $85,752 each, town clerk at $99,534, town superintendent of highways, $99,534, chairperson to the Board of Assessors, $94,712, 2 town assessors at $85,524 each, clerk of the town trustees, $24,138, 2 assistant clerks to the town trustees, $20,093, and 6 town trustees, $8,553.
Thank you, Carol. We have our budget director, Becky Hansen, here to give a brief overview and to go over a few minor changes since the last time we discussed the budget. Take it away, Becky.
Good afternoon, everybody. We're here today to talk about the preliminary budget, which you all have a copy of. So with a quick review, the preliminary budget total spending is $85,493,983, which is a slight increase over the tentative budget. That increase is $168,454. If you compare the spending from the current 2021 fiscal year, it's an increase of just over 3%. But the surprising thing is with the preliminary budget, we have actually slightly reduced the tax levy of just over $23,000. I know in the grand scheme of things, 23,000 compared to 85 million, but any sort of money that we can attempt to return to the taxpayer, I think is a good thing. So, after the last time that we met, we took a close look at expenditures and revenues, and we feel right now, our current fiscal year, we are on pace as far as spending. We're where we should be. We are, about just over 80% through the current fiscal year, and our spending is on target right now with that. On the revenue side, we are actually over our projections in all of our major funds. We have collected over 90% of revenues in all of our funds as of today. And in some cases, some of the funds, we are at 95 and 98% of our collections. So that's really, really good news as we're going into the next fiscal year. And that helps us with our projections, which is what we needed to do. After the last meeting of the board, the board made it clear. We went back and we implemented regrades that will now affect a total of 115 current employees. Which I think is a really, really good thing. And this is in addition to the contract settlement that the board and the CSEA agreed to earlier this year. So with the regrades and again, looking at the budget as a whole, it's really no surprise that a majority of the budget, as in most years and probably for most municipalities, a majority of your spending is attributed to salaries and benefits for your employees. And the 2022 budget is looking at just over 60% of expenditures are for salaries and benefits, which again is not highly unusual given contracts, the cost of health insurance, and retirement, the benefits that we have to provide to our employees. Given all of these changes that we did with the regrades, we are still under the tax cap, which again is really good news. And there was actually the tiniest of decrease in the tax rate for those located both inside and outside the villages. So if we are looking at a home that has a market value of $1.2 million, if you are outside the villages, there will be an impact of $56.92. Inside the villages, that impact will be $36.47. We also received some good news last night. Our 2022 retirement bill came in, and that amount is the same amount that we received in our estimated bill for 2022, and that's the amount that we used in developing the budget. So that's good news that there is no additional adjustment that will need to be made as far as the retirement is concerned for any of our employees. So you've all had a chance to look at the preliminary budget, and I know that we've had a few minor changes to that that I've circulated to the board that I'll just go over briefly. And a few of them were, some of them are, there's no impact financially. So we'll start with those. One includes appropriations that the board gives to outside organizations. We had one group that was inadvertently listed twice on our sheet, and one of those appropriations for $500 should be for the Pediatric Dental Foundation. So we will make that change on the spreadsheet. Again, the funding has already been appropriated, so again, cost neutral. Also the same with the Hampton Wellness Foundation. The budget had appropriated $6,000, but the chart read $5,000. But again, so that will be a cost neutral effect because again, that money has already been appropriated in the budget and the expenditures have already been taken into account. We did have a handful of regrades that when we were doing our input they were just omitted. Two of those, again, are out of funds that will not impact the tax cap directly, so we're able to make those corresponding adjustments. But two, we will be drawing from the amount that we're still allowed under the tax cap, which was originally we were up to $28,000. After we make those adjustments, two are in the A fund and one is in the DB fund. That brings us down to our remaining cap amount will be just under $7,300, which is still more than what was initially proposed under the tentative budget, which was just over $5,000. So I don't know if anyone has any other questions or if there are any questions during the hearing, happy to answer any issues or concerns anyone has.
Anyone have any questions or comments?
I just wanted to thank Becky. You know, there was a lot of moving parts here, and doing regrades that affect 115 staff members, you know, was, I'm sure, challenging, and a lot of spreadsheets because we saw many of them. And I just want to thank you for being, you know, so responsive and thoughtful, and because it wasn't easy, and I really appreciate it.
Yeah, I'd like to thank Becky, and I also like to thank my fellow board members for supporting the regrades for the 115 town employees. This is a really critical time, I think, for us, and that will go a long way towards helping. We're headed in the right direction there. And all the finance staff, you know, Neji and the whole crew who, through this budget process, met with me and the department heads, and there have been multiple rounds. And, you know, I know these regrades at the last sort of couple weeks has been a lot to go through. So again, thank you all. Anything else from anyone? In that case, I'll entertain a motion.
No, we have to see if there's any public comment.
Correct. Thanks, Kathy. Good save. Do we have any callers on the line for the budget hearing?
I don't know if they're for the budget hearing necessarily, but I can unmute them and find out what they're calling in for.
Thank you, Jason. Let's find out.
All right, for unmuting first caller. Hello, caller ending 5901. You are on the air. Hello, caller ending in 5901. You are on the air. There you go. You're unmuted now. All's good?
Yeah, I'm calling on Muchmore Lane, so I have nothing to say right now.
Understood. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Unmuting next caller. Hello, caller ending 1131. You're on the air.
Yes, hi, this is Lisa Lagaria. I was just calling in to check on the status with the negotiations with American Tower at the Girl Scouts, see where we stand and what the next steps are, if I can get an update, please.
Okay. Yes, so if you'll stay on the line, we'll get to you for public comment after the public hearing section.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you very much.
And unmuting the last caller on the line. Hello, caller. You are on the air, 8764. Oh, hey, there you are. Hey.
Hi, Jason. Let me just give you a heads up. I intend to either stay on the line or call back later to participate in some of the other hearings and public comments, so don't disregard me out of hand.
Thank you, David.
Buddha, good afternoon.
Good afternoon, David.
I wanted to provide congratulations to the winners and my condolences to the losers. You all fought a hard-fought battle for the future of the town's public governance, and I hope it will be for the benefit of the public, always. I would like to make a comment on one aspect of the budget, one that is given always short shrift, but yet has a significant impact. You have just one page in your budget without any commentary or explanation concerning, in the B fund, the 9,000 account, which is employee benefits expenditures, which is for primarily for retiree health insurance benefits. It's $1.5 million, which is about 1.7% of your annual expenditure. First, let me recommend to you, if you're not familiar with the good work of the Empire Center, who has just recently, a few days ago, put out a piece studying what they describe as New York's growing debt iceberg, what accountants call the other post-employment benefits, which are nearly always unfunded. Moreover, it's a benefit, a perk, that is one that very few outside of government ever get or anyone would ever consider getting. And due to the problems with this future benefit, that is not funded presently. It's extremely rare, and many industries have curtailed it almost to the point of it being extinct in the private sector. What we're talking about is your future obligation to pay some health insurance benefits, not for your employees, but after their retirement, to contribute to their health insurance before they become eligible for Medicare, or once they become eligible for Medicare, to contribute to their Part B expenditure or supplemental Medicare insurance. I think it's wonderful that you've recognized the need to maintain salary parity for your current employees, and you've, across the board, been generous in scaling those salaries. But the rubber has to meet the road somewhere. You can't just, it used to be the old saying that civil employees understood that they would not get market value salaries because they would get generous benefits, post-employment, generous pensions. And if anyone looks at your budget and sees how much of your budget goes towards funding those future benefits, those pension benefits, and health insurance benefits currently, that's certainly the case and still is. But if you're going to increase current salaries for employees to market value, to be competitive with your neighbors, you really have to take a closer look at the remedies that you can implement fairly to reduce your future liability for health insurance for retirees. It really is, if you go to your financial statements, and at least since 1990, the financial statements require you to incorporate a liability for the full long-term cost of current promises for future benefits. And these non-current employee benefits are substantial. The other post-employment benefits are tremendous. Let me just, I know time's short, let me just mention a couple of suggestions that the Empire Census makes in their recently issued paper. It was November 1st. You can make existing retiree costs should be curbed judiciously, with the fewest changes made for older retirees. For those already Medicare eligible, employers should consider Medicare Advantage and reduce or end reimbursement of Medicare Part B premiums. Younger retirees should be required to pay increased premiums. Most public employers in New York require employee contributions far below the allowable statutory maximum, which is 50% for employees and 65% for dependents. You really need to take a look at this. This $1.5 million in your budget, it's never discussed, it's never explained. I have to wonder how many people are participating, how many are benefiting from this $1.5 million retiree health insurance benefit. Can anyone give me an approximate number?
I can't off the top of my head, David. I really can't, but I'm sure that information is available.
We do. I mean, the town undergoes, as required, David, you probably know, an annual GASB report that we have, valuation report that we have to do, and every other year is a full valuation. So the town does do that. And unfortunately, the state legislature does not allow municipalities to set aside reserve funds to fund OPEB liabilities, which I think would be a huge asset in allowing municipalities to plan longer term for those types of benefits. So.
So the point is that every year they're paid out of pocket. You don't have any reserves. You can't charge.
We can't set aside reserves
for their future. So. Excuse me.
We can't set aside a
reserve for that purpose.
Municipalities in New York State are not allowed to establish reserve funds to pay for OPEB. So we do pay as we go, just like every other municipality.
Right. That's exactly what I said, and that's why it's such a big ticket item that you should address to the extent that you can, and I'm suggesting that you should, that it's fair to give the employees what they deserve today to make them competitive, give them living wages, but some of the historical benefits for government employees for post-retirement health insurance are more than generous. They are fluffy, and they need to be restricted, and that $1.5 million in your budget needs to get more attention from all of you going forward when it comes to your contract negotiations with the unions. Thank you very much.
Thanks for your comments, David. Do we have any other callers on the line, Jason, for this?
We have no
Hearing.
other callers on the line. Everyone else has already been addressed, and we've put them into the proper queue.
Motion to close.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, passed and carried.
Thank you,
Thank you.
everybody.
Thanks,
Thank you,
Becky.
Becky.
Great work.
Thank you.
Absolutely. Carol, if you'd read the next hearing notice, please.
1 second, I answer that. Oh, there you go.
Take notice that the town board of the town of East Hampton will hold a public hearing in the town board, East Hampton, pursuant to section 247 of the general municipal law and section 64E8 of the town law of the state of New York on November 4th at 2 p.m. or as soon thereafter as this matter may be heard, to consider the following: the town's acquisition for preservation of open space with community preservation funds of a property located at 76 Fairview Avenue in Montauk, reputedly owned by Margaret O. Capizzola and consisting of approximately 0.32 acres of vacant land at a cost to the town of East Hampton not to exceed $440,000 plus reasonable survey title, prorated tax, and recording charges, said property being described on the Suffolk County tax map as 319-8 4.2, an amendment to the 2021 CPF Management and Stewardship Plan to include said property.
Thank you, Carol. I believe we have Scott Wilson with us today to give a brief overview of this property.
Scott, you
I
need-
said unmute myself there, sorry. So on your screen is the property. It's highlighted in blue. Just above that is the Montauk Golf Course. This is a vacant parcel being within the Lake Montauk watershed. Was one of the properties that we reached out to during our Lake Montauk outreach in 2014. 7+ years later, and we are still receiving responses to that letter. When we did this outreach, we did it in conjunction with the Natural Resources Department and the Planning Department, since Lake Montauk is a known compromised water body. I just want to read part of the endorsement to the town board to do the outreach in the first place. Many of the properties within Lake Montauk's watershed were created prior to contemporary land use regulations, and in many cases, prior to the adoption of zoning. Natural characteristics such as topography, soil drainage, and the presence and extent of wetlands were given minimal, if any, consideration. Lake Montauk receives significant volumes of fresh water from groundwater and surface water flow within the boundaries of the watershed. Construction activities that can influence the rate, volume, and composition of surface water runoff include clearing, filling, the establishment of impervious surfaces, and the installation of on-site waste disposal systems, especially when these activities occur in proximity to freshwater wetlands. The impacts of these activities throughout the watershed are cumulative. The acquisition of vacant properties within the watershed provides an opportunity to reduce and mitigate some of the cumulative impacts by retaining and in some locations restoring the natural buffering potential of undeveloped properties. While the Capizzola property has extensive high-quality wetlands, which would be significantly impacted if construction were ever to occur here, and I'm often reminded of something that Brian Frank mentioned with regard to these types of vacant properties that both have wetlands or in proximity to wetlands that act as the kidneys for Lake Montauk, just filtering toxins and contaminants. This parcel meets the criteria set forth in Town Law 64E. I would ask the board to pass a resolution to acquire.
Thank you, Scott. Can we go to the callers and see if anyone's here to speak on this public hearing?
Absolutely. And I think we have one. Hello, 5901. Was this the topic that you wished to talk about?
Oh, hi, this is Chris Minardi, and no, it's not the parcel that I wish to talk about. Thank you.
Okay, would that be the next one on the show, the Shulman CPF?
Yes, Shulman, yes.
Thank you very much. Mr. Supervisor, aside from that, that was the only caller. The other one is for the American Tower for public hearing.
Thank you, Jason. I'll entertain a motion.
Motion to close.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Passed and carried. Thank you. Carol?
I make a motion to conjoin public hearings number 3 and 4.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Passed and carried. The records of the next two hearings will be joined. Carol, if you'd please read the hearing notices.
Carol's muted.
Carol, you're muted.
All right.
Take notice that the Town Board of the Town of East Hampton will hold a public hearing on November 4th, 2 p.m. or soon thereafter, as this matter may be heard on a proposed local law providing for the adoption of a revised community preservation project plan pursuant to Section 64E of the New York Town Law, which provides for the preservation of open space, historic places, recreational areas within the town of East Hampton, including the incorporated villages therein, to include approximately 0.2 acres of developed land located at 8 Muchmore Lane, East Hampton Village, reputedly owned by Amy Schulman Breslin, aka Amy Schulman, and identified on the Suffolk County tax map as 301453. Take notice that the Town Board of the Town of East Hampton will hold a public hearing pursuant to Section 247 of the General Municipal Law and Section 64E8 of the Town Law of the State of New York on November 4th at 2 p.m. or soon thereafter, as this matter may be heard to concern the following: town's acquisition for the establishments of parks, nature preserves, or recreational areas with community preservation funds of a developed property located at 8 Muchmore Lane, East Hampton Village, reputedly owned by Abby Schumann Breslin, aka Amy Schumann, and consisting of approximately 0.2 acres of developed land at a cost to the town of East Hampton not to exceed $2,557,500 plus reasonable survey title, prorated tax and recording charges, said property being described on the Suffolk County tax map as 301453, an amendment to the 2021 CPF Management Stewardship Plan to include said property.
Thank you, Carol. Jason, if we could get a brief overview from Scott Wilson.
Sure. On your screen is the property highlighted in blue. That's 8 Muchmore. Please note its proximity to Herrick Park. Currently, the property is developed with a single-family residence and associated structures, but as part of this acquisition, the current owner will remove these structures, returning the property to green space before we actually take possession. And if you will recall, in September, we had another public hearing to acquire the property outlined in bright green just below that. And we worked with the village and the Dayton family on 3 other parcels below and to the left of that. So opportunities for park expansion or even park buffer are rare. So we have been consistently working with willing sellers to continue adding to the available park space for all residents within the village and the town. And I believe we actually have a village trustee on the line who's probably better placed to explain the relevance of this acquisition to the park.
Thank you, Scott. If we can go to the callers.
Absolutely.
Mr. Minardi is here with us today to speak.
Okay. Mr. Minardi, you are on the air.
Hi, the third time's a charm. Thank you for having me, Peter and the town board. Thank you so much. My name is Chris Minardi. I'm calling on behalf of Mayor Jerry Larson and the village board to fully support this property acquisition. As Scott Wilson mentioned, how rare it is to be able to expand some of our open space in the village. As you know, the village is a very small hamlet, and these opportunities don't come up very often. So we're very, very excited about the potential buffer expansion, whatever whatever we decide to do with this. But it's a very unique opportunity. It does jet out a little bit into the park, which would be really nice to square off. And East Hampton Village Parks, and it's a hub for recreation and enjoyment for not only village residents, town residents, and visitors to our beautiful village here in East Hampton. So thank you very much for the time and the efforts. Scott Wilson, you do a really great job. I know it's a pleasure to work with you. Thank you for everything you've done. And I know David Lease, you've been very, very helpful as well, as for everyone in your in this committee and everyone that helps us with these acquisitions. So my hat's off to you, and we really appreciate working with you. So thank you.
Thanks very much for taking the time to call us, Chris, and we appreciate this working partnership that we have with the village.
Yeah, you guys are doing a great job. Thank you.
Thanks. Do we have any other callers on the line, Jason?
We have one new caller, and let me unmute right now. Hello, caller ending in 4221. You are on the air. Hello.
Hi, good afternoon, board. It's Jane Meering in Amagansett. So today I'd like to address you about this proposed near 2.6 million CPF acquisition of 8 Muchmore. It's a 0.18 acre parcel on the west side of Herrick. A rental listing indicates that it's currently improved with a over 2,000 square foot 4-bedroom house, and as you mentioned, the structure will be demolished for the acquisition. So today you'll hear me reiterate several of the points I raised when I spoke at the September 23rd hearing regarding the proposed acquisition of 21 Muchmore. Here are my comments and concerns. Again, first, we see a parcel not listed on the extensive CPF target list that was recently approved just a couple months ago. I know it's within the town's right to amend the plan, quote, from time to time, and I believe in that flexibility. But, we've now seen quite a sequence of these out-of-plan transactions. And again, the rapidity and regularity of these amendments over the last 2 months do seem to contradict CPF's idea of amending from time to time. My bottom line concern remains that this is going to start to undermine or is undermining some public confidence overall. Again, I have to secondly refer to price tag. This purchase is at a per acre equivalent well in excess of anything else we've seen, including 21 Muchmore. And I'd also note that the board has not provided the public with any information or transparency as to valuation, methodology, and assessments, or any kind of sort of cost-benefit analysis versus others as part of the rationale. I don't want to be misconstrued at all that I'm looking to deny CPF spending in the village. I'm well aware that the contributions from the transfer tax in the village probably well exceed the deployment of those funds. But I'm going to suggest that perhaps we should be looking at acquisitions more consistent with CPF and preserving natural resources and water quality. This is a new issue I'd like to raise, but I'm going to ask if we can consider if demolishing housing within the village commercial core is indeed the best and right outcome. Both 21 Muchmore and 8 Muchmore have, decent-sized houses in good shape, and I believe have been used mostly as rental properties. Not that long ago, we actually heard Trustee Minority and the village board speak a lot about the need for affordable housing, accessory housing, seasonal housing, and so now we're demolishing, houses that could meet that. Again, CPF monies I know can't be used for that, but we're a year away from another transfer tax that we'll address. So I'm just asking if the board can consider if this valuable housing stock might be used in a more creative way. Fourth, I think it's just unclear again that this acquisition is consistent with CPF mandates. Certainly the purpose of said acquisition is said to be parks, nature preserves, and recreation areas, but that's one of many things and fits into the, I think, third of 4 priorities in the document. Moreover, the plan defines use for funds of lands for recreation focused much more on passive enjoyment in areas that put users in close proximity to nature and flora and fauna. I can't speak today. Herrick Park is currently being transitioned from a park for mostly passive enjoyment and casual recreation into a heavily used event space, which maybe there's nothing wrong with that, but I don't see that as explicitly consistent with CPF. In July, Mayor Larson declared, quote, Herrick Park has now become a venue for our village events, and indeed we can see festivals and parties, consuming the space, sometimes with a lot of loud amplified music and sound for hours. And so that, in addition, the mayor has offered comments not that long ago that contradict the notion that this parcel will definitely be used to expand the park. I guess I'm interested that when I first brought this to the attention of the board a few weeks ago, now we see this resolution written to sort of hedge a bit and provide some wiggle room that says it may be used for a buffer or expansion. I keep coming back to this. I just have to ask, why does a park that would be consistent with CPF need a buffer? And a heavily used event and entertainment space appears to be inconsistent with prior plans and with the spirit. Trustee Minardi just said, like, however we use it, he sort of, I think that going into a CPF acquisition, we really do have to know and be certain how a parcel will be used. And then lastly, we have significant private interests now funding and looking to be driving the re-envisioning of the park. You've got the Village Foundation, which is in the business to collect private donations, primarily for two things, including raising $8 to $10 million for the re-envisioning and renovation of the park. Supervisor Van Squack, last week you talked a lot about the joy of public-private partnerships for preservation, and this appears to be maybe a good potential for that private money to fund this type of acquisition. So thank you. Bottom line, until there is a fully realized, publicly vetted plan for the park, one that we know is consistent with CPF mandates, until it's confirmed that the prior CPF acquisitions are also going to be used as part of the park, until we have full transparency around who's contributing to the foundation and funding and influencing the park, I would sincerely ask that this CPF acquisition on the table not yet be approved to proceed. Again, thank you very much for considering my comments on this matter.
Thank you, Jane. Have a good day.
Thank you.
Jason, do we have any other callers?
Yes, we do. Unmuting now.
Good afternoon again. It's David Boot. I just wanted to make some generalized comments concerning this hearing. First, if I had my druthers, the town would put on its website prior to the hearing all available information concerning the hearing, such as the PowerPoint presentation that Scott gave today, the town planner, or perhaps it's the village planner's evaluation of the project as far as conforming with CPF objectives and criteria, the CPF Advisory Board's recommendation, which, to my astonishment, may not even exist in a tangible form. I wish someone could explain to me, since it's a statutory requirement, how does the CPF Advisory Board convey to the town board its opinion with regard to proposed acquisitions? There doesn't seem to be any documentation of that, other than perhaps rubber stamping and accepting as valid the evaluation form prepared by the town planning department's planner. It is certainly true that you went through a lot of effort to prepare a CPF project plan. The village is within the town, and they have their portion of their evaluation of open space needs is part of the town's CPF project plan. But I double-checked again today, and this parcel is not part of that, which is why you have a separate hearing today to add it to the CPF project plan, which is a statutory requirement before you can approve funds for its purchase. Other than a member of the village board saying, wouldn't it be neat to be able to square off the park, I have yet to hear any statement, certainly nothing in writing, to explain how this adjacent property will be used. And that's something I think that the public needs to know before it feels comfortable with a $2.5 million expenditure for a very small property. I mean, is the village one day going to come and say, why don't you buy the Stop and Shop because it's adjacent to the park, and do it on an ad hoc basis without evaluating cost benefits and needs, etc.? There are other properties that are adjacent to the park. Has the town given the village carte blanche to just simply enlarge the park without any rational plan that is discussed and reviewed and presented to the CPF Advisory Board and made part of the CPF project plan? I hope not. So those are my comments. I do want to acknowledge and appreciate that This resolution, since it is for improved property, does specify that the negotiations include the seller being responsible for the demolition of the existing residence prior to the town taking ownership of it. Thank you. That's all I have for today on that.
Thank you, David. Do we have any other callers on the line, Jason?
There are no other callers on the line for this.
Thank you very
Motion to
much.
close.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, passed and carried. Carol, please read the last public hearing notice of the meeting.
Carol, you're muted. Give me a second. Let me unmute you. All right, you're good.
Notice hereby given that the Town Board of the Town of East Hampton will hold a public hearing on Thursday, November 4th at 2 p.m. or soon thereafter, as this matter may be heard for the purpose of considering a proposed contract with the Amagansett Fire District for fire protection and emergency ambulance service to be furnished by the Amagansett Fire District to the Town of East Hampton for the Promised Land Fire Protection District for the calendar year 2022 upon the following general terms. The Amagansett Fire District shall answer and attend all calls in said Promised Land Fire Protection for the fire protection and emergency service in case of accidents, calamities, and other emergencies, and general ambulance service for the Promised Land Fire Protection. For such services during the 12-month period, the Amagansett Fire District shall be paid the sum of $560,028.98 for 2022, payable on or before March 1, 2022.
Thank you very much, Carol. Do we have any callers on the line, Jason?
No, we do not. We only have one caller on the line, and that's for public comment.
Thank you. I'll entertain a motion.
Motion to close.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Passed and carried. At this point, we're up to the public portion where any member of the public can call and address the board on any issue. Again, we ask that you keep your comments to 3 minutes or less.
Unmuting the first caller. Hello, caller ending 1131. You are on the air. Hello, caller ending 1131.
Have a great day.
One moment. Let me just see what's going on over here. Hello, caller. One last time on 1131. Okay, moving on to the next caller.
So Jason, was that the same person that called in asking about the status of
the tower? Yes.
Our lease agreement. So I'll just make a very brief comment about that. We have been meeting with American Tower. We've had multiple meetings and we've gone through several different red line versions of a lease agreement with them. And so that process is ongoing. I'm guardedly optimistic that we'll reach resolution very soon on that. And as you all know, that the Girl Scout camp is our preferred location for emergency communications and cellular tower. And now that the Girl Scouts have approved a tower high enough for us to actually locate our emergency equipment and meet those needs, we've been engaging with American Tower and we believe we'll have resolution soon. That's we'll certainly keep the public updated as things develop. Do we have any other callers on the line for public comment?
Yes, we do. Unmuting the next caller. Hello, caller ending 2341. You are on the air. Hello.
Oh, hi. This is Bryony Frage. Good afternoon. I am a resident of East Hampton Town and a member of East End YIMBY, yes, in my backyard. We're a local housing advocacy group, and I'm calling to speak about the housing crisis on the East End. First, I want to congratulate Mr. Supervisor and Ms. Burke-Gonzalez on the re-election. And I'd like to thank the board for holding these meetings on Zoom. I'm out of breath because I'm walking to pick up my kids from school, and I could never have been at this meeting. It's really incredible. I have heard opposition to these meetings being held on Zoom, but I really, I'm a working mom with 3 young kids, and in East Hampton Town, and I wouldn't be able to join if it weren't for this. So thank you, and I beg you to please make this, ongoing remote access available for people like me, even after the public health emergency has ended. But I am calling today to, first of all, we met with East NDMB with the supervisor last month to address our concerns about housing. It was a great meeting. We felt very positive about, we feel really good about this board's priorities on affordable housing. I wanted to ask some specific questions about where exactly the board is in the process of developing the 3 properties that the town has purchased for community housing, namely the Tryon and Smith properties on Route 114 and 395 Panago. I'm wondering what the estimated time frame is to complete these properties, what needs to happen next in order to get them, shovel ready. I know I don't even know if there's been declarations yet on whether these properties will be homeowner, rental, or a combination. Have you bid out the site work? Have you selected an architect? We'd really like to know where you are specifically in the process. And my second point is that I'm sure that you've looked at other properties appropriate for affordable housing. Would the board consider bonding in anticipation of the revenue from the Peconic Bay Community Housing Fund? If we wait to purchase more scattered sites, once that hopefully that fund, the referendum passes and we're able to start receiving that revenue, I think it's going to take estimates from people much smarter than me are saying, 5 or 6 years down the road is when we might be able to have enough money to start developing and using funds from that fund. So would you be willing, our housing crisis is urgent. I know I don't have to tell you that we're facing a teacher shortage, first responders are at risk of being pushed out. Medical, I work at East End Pediatrics. We're horribly short-staffed, and we're in crisis now. So can we borrow and buy more land now and use those funds to build later? So that was a lot, but hopefully you got it while I'm walking through the street.
Yes, that was a lot. There's a lot to talk about with the housing affordability crisis. First, to your comment about having meetings available where folks can call in, we found that the engagement is really increased over in-person meetings for the reasons you stated. We have the 3 properties that you spoke about. They're in different phases. We've approved the affordable housing overlay for the 395 Panago Road. We're looking at increasing the density of single-family homes on that property. And currently, the town limits the number of such homes on per acre. We would like to see that expanded to be more consistent with the county's regulations. So that's something we're looking at. We'd like to get that project started early in the new year in terms of putting that out to bid and getting construction going. The 114 property, we're still in the process of affordable overlay district. We need to look at the costs of bringing public water to that location. We are actively looking and have been for multiple years at potential properties to acquire for affordable housing. We've purchased a couple small properties. One of the adjacent properties to the 114 Triune Baptist Church property that we recently bought had a house on it, which we put immediately into our affordable housing program while the plans for a larger project are being developed. So I think everybody realizes just how important that is in terms of our municipal government. We're finding it more and more difficult to, attract and retain staff. Every single business is facing this. The hospital's facing this, school districts. So, it's all hands on deck. Finding properties that we can acquire is challenging. We are pursuing some properties in Montauk right now. Hopefully we're able to close. In terms of bonding, I don't think we can bond against the community housing fund monies yet. We can bond, and we certainly have done that in the past for affordable housing. We did put aside money out of general municipal funds for the 395 Pantago Place property. That's the last one we purchased. And we're prepared to do that again should we find properties that we're actually able to pay appraised value. We can pay up to appraised value, can't pay beyond appraised value on properties. And that's been challenging as well. With the hot real estate market, we get outbid occasionally on properties that we try to acquire. But we understand the importance of it. It's going to be a major and primary focus of the new administration, and something we need to all work together to try to relieve what is really a crisis that's only become worse since the pandemic. But we appreciate you calling in, Bryony. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, I want to remind the caller.
One clarification was that have you decided home ownership, rental, or a combination for those three properties, or is that still being considered?
It hasn't been finalized, but our intention is the 395 Pantago. I believe the majority of the board feels that should be single family home ownership, with the town retaining an ongoing interest in the property to make sure it stays in the affordable portfolio. The 114 property seems better suited for rental apartments. But we also have to address seasonal housing concerns and issues. Many of our businesses are seasonal in nature, but if they can't attract staff due to no housing and the commute times are too long, then businesses start to fail. And that's where we are. We have restaurants that are not staying open as many days of the week as they used to because they simply can't staff. So this is affecting all sectors of our community, and it's not just a local problem, by the way, but it's certainly made worse by our geographic, isolation here out on the East End.
So I just wanted to remind the caller that the Housing Authority is also in the planning department right now with their 50-unit apartment rental, which, is something that she can also go to their public hearing as it moves along. And we get that situated. So that's another 50 units that we're looking at in the near future.
That's at Pantago. Is that right? 395?
That's off 3 Mile Harbor Road.
3 Mile Harbor Road.
Yes, right. Yes, and we were thrilled to hear that it went through that first planning, it was approved by that first planning board recently, and we are 100% behind that. And please, anybody who's interested, who's listening and is interested in becoming an advocate for this, check us out on Facebook, via YIMBY, eastendyimby.org, and join us. And thank you to the board.
Yes, thank you.
Thank you. We have any other callers on the line?
Yes, we do. We will unmute the next caller right now. 1 second. Let me just make sure.
Yes. Good afternoon again. It's David Buda. I'd like to discuss a resolution that I thought was unusual. I just wanted to get some conversation going. Resolution number 1211 on Councilman Lisa's agenda to approve an agreement with the Peconic Land Trust for mowing of CPF property, which is off of Stony Hill Road. For those of you who don't know, this is a property that was created as an ag reserve as part of a subdivision process that occurred in the 90s, 1992 and 95, I believe, owned by the Potter family. And more recently, the town acquired the last undeveloped building lots, but also bought for the price of $568,000 an ag reserve. This ag reserve, though, was not owned outright by the developers, but rather it was subject to several conservation easements that had been given to the Peconic Land Trust as part of the subdivision process in the 90s. So, and I confirmed with Scott Wilson that the pre-existing public Peconic Land Trust conservation easements were not extinguished by the town's purchase of the underlying rights or the balance of the ownership rights. So Peconic Land Trust has, for probably decades, been responsible for this property and continues to be responsible, notwithstanding the town's CPF purchase. What is really ironic is that this is an ag reserve that is not being used for agricultural purposes, as unlike the town's owned ag reserve or CPF purchased ag reserve on Green Hollow Road and in East Hampton near Dunalpin. So my first question is, what is the town's plans to actually use this property in its intended purpose for agriculture? Does the town have any plans? And secondly, since it was never, there's no other real reason for this property to be maintained by the town other than to facilitate ag purposes, and if the PLCT has traditionally been responsible for mowing it, why would you engage third parties and their contractors to do an annual mowing program when the town does annual mowing programs for its own CPF properties that it tries to maintain as meadow? You have the capability, you have the resources, but it's already being done because the Peconic Land Trust has conservation easements and has responsibility, or at least the opportunity, to continue to do what they've been doing. And then lastly, and this is a technical point, the resolution as drafted is open-ended. Although it speaks about $150 per hour, it doesn't in any way set a cap or give an estimate of how much funds we're talking about to mow this 7-some-odd acre property. I really think the town should be looking at how it can be using this property, having spent more than $500,000 to purchase it for, and it is an ag reserve. You should use it for agriculture or facilitate that, and not merely pay other people to maintain it, not knowing what they're doing with it, other than just keeping it as a mowed field. Thank you.
David, to answer some of the questions, the PLT is not maintaining the property any longer, and the easement does not give them permission to enter the property. I completely agree with you right now that I would like this to be actively farmland through a type of license agreement. I think the town was looking at doing that within the last couple of years after purchase, but we decided to hold off on that based on some of overclearing that happened on the neighboring property there. We wanted to make sure that this property wasn't involved in that. I'd like to try to see if we can move that forward in the next couple of months so that we could get a farmer to potentially, or a licensee to actively use it for agricultural use in the future. I hope that answers some of your questions.
It does, except for an estimate as to how much money you're talking about. It should be somewhere in the resolution, either as a dollar amount or a not to exceed amount.
I can add a not to exceed amount, but I don't know if you've been to the property or not. The town's land management department does not have the equipment necessary to traverse that type of land that's there to do this size of a job. So I will amend it appropriately.
Okay, but the Peconic Land Trust does continue to mow its adjacent reserve land that was not agricultural reserve, but there was a general reserve or buffer which is used for public trails, and I assume that they do maintain that. So I'm wondering why, if their conservation easements still exist, why they're not continuing to do what they've been doing for decades now.
You can contact land management on that, or I'll find more information about it.
Yeah, I don't know that maybe David, you can tell me. I don't know that the easement is over the entire property.
It's my understanding that there were conservation easements granted to the Peconic Land Trust when this ag reserve was created, in the same way that they were given conservation easements over the adjacent non-agricultural reserve lands, and you would have to go back into the documents from the 90s to see exactly what rights they had. But what I do know is that those rights were not extinguished by the CPF's purchase.
Understood, but I don't think they extended over the entirety of the property, and that's why we bought the additional development rights.
They did. I think you're wrong, and I'll provide.
Well, I just asked you. I don't know. I honestly don't know, but we could certainly get that information.
Well, back in the 1990s when the subdivision occurred, there was no CPF, there was no town fund to make these kind of.
I'm not sure what the relevance is, but.
The easement doesn't confer management rights. It does the prevention of building on the property. So
again, in order to keep open field and available for future, agricultural use, you have to mow it regularly. So that's what's going on. And to maintain its ability to be farmed, you don't want trees growing up in it and other invasives.
It could also
and what
be
you're
used.
saying, and I'll take it as being accurate, what you're saying is the town doesn't have the resources or the machinery necessary to do that?
Not in land management, no.
It could also be used for a horse farm. That's also under agriculture. So just saying it's going to be row cropped is not accurate either. And I believe there were horses on that property at one point in time.
Yeah, I think historically it was used as pasturage, but in any case, you need to be able to mow regularly to maintain.
You would still have to mow.
I'm sure we can get the rest of the information you desire, David.
Okay, you could buy a couple of goats.
I don't think a couple of goats would keep 7 acres cleared, honestly. No, seriously, I don't
Okay,
think.
have a good day.
You need more than a couple of goats. Thanks, David. Anyone else on the line, Jason?
Yes, unmuting the next caller. Hello, caller ending 3420. You are on the air.
Hey. Hello?
Hello. Who's calling, please?
Yes. Lenny Sauls.
Hello,
Kathy.
Lenny.
Hi. Kathy, what is happening with the senior center? Is there an architect that's been chosen?
You're on mute, Kathy.
Not yet, Lenny. We formed a review committee. We received 15 proposals. They were all reviewed and graded by the committee. We narrowed that down to 4 firms. They've all been interviewed, and the committee is meeting tomorrow to discuss our recommendation to the board. So I'm hoping we'll be able to make a recommendation later this month, if not the first work session in December.
And it will be an architect who's going to do this, right?
Absolutely.
Thanks for calling,
Lenny. I hadn't heard you mention any architects.
Oh, I've been bringing it up in my liaison reports to keep the board and the community apprised of what's going on. Yes, it's architectural firm, engineering, landscape designers, passive house folks. It'll be a real team effort to construct the new senior center. It's an exciting project.
Well, if you have a good architect, it shouldn't be, but.
Well, thanks for calling in, Lenny. Take care.
Yeah, thank you.
Okay, so we had the caller who wanted to talk to you about the tower thing. They just came back online. Do you want me to unmute them again?
Sure.
Hello, caller ending. There you are.
Yes, I don't know what happened earlier. Thanks for giving me another chance. Peter, I heard your comments about American Tower. You said things were going well.
Can you just tell me who's calling, please? I'm sorry, who's calling? Who's calling, please?
I'm sorry, Lisa Legalia.
Hi, Lisa.
Hi there. Yes, I heard your comments earlier about what the status was with American Tower. You said things were going well, and the Girl Scouts was the preferable site. at this point, do you have any foreseeable issues that this project may not move forward with the Girl Scouts? Is there any issues you might think of that could put a stop to the project in that site?
I've received no indication of that at all, but I mean, obviously it would require us reaching agreement with American Tower, but I don't see any obstacles at this time.
Oh, okay. What about the cow? Is that still in play? I mean, at this point, with the American Tower moving forward, is the cow still working as a temporary situation, or are we just going straight forward with the tower?
So it's possible, given the timeline, that we may put up a temporary cell on wheels, which is COW for short, even though it may not have wheels, it may just be ballasted. We're looking at possible locations for that. And that, could potentially be on town property down at Gann Road, I think. There's no ability to have a direct link via microwave from that type of situation, but there are a couple of other locations that could potentially be used on a temporary basis. And it really is going to depend on how long we think it will take to have a permanent tower built. We obviously want to try to complete the emergency communications as soon as possible because that's really critical. Springs is woefully underserved on both the emergency communications and cellular communications. So, whatever we can do on a temporary basis to improve that while we get the permanent tower up is important.
And just another question is, what locations are you looking at for the cow? Can you disclose those, or?
Well, I mean, there have been a number of them mentioned in the past, and again, I wouldn't want to say, without having some further conversation with the board and community about where that might be at this time.
Okay. So the timeline for the cow, do you have a timeline where you're trying to get that in place? Is that something that you have
ASAP.
Schedule already?
Yeah, ASAP. I mean, as soon as we can. I can't give you a specific date, but we're going to continue pushing to get it done as fast as we can. We know it's important.
So I'm afraid to ask, but are you considering the Crandall Norfolk Woodlands as a possible location for the cow?
I've heard pretty loud and clear from the community. We've had a number of discussions, and that would certainly not be high on my list. Okay. But again, a temporary tower is maybe one alternative way to solve our problem short term while the longer term solution comes to pass. But I don't really even have a completion date. We have to get through the lease agreements, then there's planning board applications and whatnot. So that's the most I can tell you. But yeah, exactly. But that's going to influence what we do with the temporary tower as well, obviously.
Okay. So, I mean, my question here then would be, wouldn't you be able to roll a cow or build a temporary communications unit in the Girl Scouts without any issue, being that that's most likely where the tower will go? Or you have to wait until you have to wait for the agreement to be in place before you can do something like that?
Well, it's that, plus it's private property, so it would have to go through, I believe it'd have to go through a planning board review, site plan review. And that's one of the reasons why we were looking at town properties, because we don't have to go through that review. We get comments from the planning board, but doesn't require planning board approval. A cow on private property is going to require site plan review and planning board approval. And that takes
cows you get typically come from the cell provider themselves. We're not dealing directly with the cell provider now. We're dealing with basically a middleman. We're dealing with American Tower. They don't have access to cows, temporary towers. They do permanent towers.
Okay, so then, I mean, the firehouse should be the easiest in location, I guess, for the cow, I would think, meaning that there's no destruction of any kind of tree, and they have 24-hour people there to monitor it if that's possible. So hopefully that would be the highest on your list.
Right. Well, again, Lisa, it's not town-owned property, and they have to go through site plan review too.
And they've been pos-decked.
They've
So
been
it's not
very
so
willing
easy.
to host that. So.
No, understood.
Okay.
Understood. I mean, we're looking for the path of least resistance and the most expeditious way to solve what's a really important problem.
Yeah. Okay. I will stay in touch with you guys. Thank you for the information.
Okay, appreciate it. Yeah, thank you, Lisa, and feel free to reach out to my office and for any updates.
Thanks, Peter.
Take care.
Take care.
Do we have any other callers on the line?
We have no other new callers on the line.
Okay, at this point, I think we can move on to resolutions.
Right. So starting with resolution 2021-1208, it's approval of the warrant. Claims total $2,532,362.06. And the utility warrant totals $26,454.31.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, passed and carried.
Resolution 2021-1209 is a budget modification for human services. We're moving a total of $6,300, $300 from general repairs, $6,000 from part-time salaries, to $300 to lease of equipment, and $6,000 to other equipment. And this is to install 2 EV charging stations at the senior center. Currently, our homemakers have need their cards charged. They have to do it here at Town Hall. It's really not efficient that way. So Diane had the ability, made the request, worked with Lauren Steinberg to make that to make it available, and they can charge right there on site. There is this resolution does have to be amended. The budget line for lease of equipment should end in a 0, Carol. It should be 0.54400. And other equipment, the line below it should be 52600.
Do we have a second as amended?
Second as amended.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, passed and carried.
Resolution 2021-1210 is an approval of a special event permit. It's for Sound Aircraft Services, Inc., holidays at the Hangar Artisan Fair at the East Hampton Airport on Saturday, December 11th from 12 to 4 p.m.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, passed and carried.
I'd like to offer resolution 2021-1211 to approve an agreement with the Peconic Land Trust for mowing of CPF property tax map 300-149-5-8. The town's cost will be $150 per hour. I'd like to amend it to not exceed $600 per year. The contract or the approved agreement would be for 3 years with 3 one-year periods after.
Second is amended.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, passed and carried.
Resolution 2021-1212 is accept a memorial bench donation from Nick Gilligan. I'd like to donate a memorial bench to the gift to the bench in the name of his mother, Lauren Lisa, to be placed inside the Atlantic Avenue Cemetery in the corner of Main Street and Atlantic Avenue. The request has been also approved by the cemetery's Board of Trustees.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye, passed and carried.
1213 is to accept donation and amend the budget for a memorial bench where Rachel Antel wishes to pay for a memorial bench and plaque located, and I need to amend this at the head of 3 Mile. I want to add the words 3 Mile Harbor in dedication to her father, Gus Antel.
A second is amended.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, passed and carried.
Resolution 1214 is a budget modification for highway, taking from office equipment in the amount of $160 to office expense in the same amount.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Passed and carried.
Resolution 1215 is a budget modification, again for Highway Department, taking from budget line road surfacing material in the amount of $10,000 and bringing it to budget line subcontractor cost in the amount of $2,000 and communication equipment in the amount of $8,000.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Passed and carried.
Resolution 1216 is budget modification for aquaculture, taking from budget lines full-time salary in the amount of $47,000, Social Security, Medicare in the amount of $3,400, health insurance in the amount of $1,995, and then bringing in the budget lines the amount of full-time salaries in the amount of $4,300, longevity $4,000, Social Security, Medicare $3,400, and health insurance in the amount of $1,995.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Passed and carried.
1217, budget modification for Parks and Recreation, taking from full-time salaries in the amount of $4,000 and part-time salaries in the amount of $3,000, and bring it to budget lines for heat in the amount of $4,000 and boat maintenance in the amount of $3,000.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Passed and carried.
1218 is to reject the bid for EH21-036 for the Westlake Comfort Station, where the town did solicit bids. We are now rejecting those bids. Just to let the board know, those bids came in at a very high price on there, and we are reworking some of our avenues to make it, to still go forward with the project, but to make it within budget.
What did it come in at, David, if I may ask?
About
Do you know?
60% higher than we budgeted.
Wow. Have you looked at, well, I'll talk to you about it later.
I'll bring it up in my liaison report on
Yeah,
Tuesday.
okay. Sorry, thanks. Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Passed and carried.
1219 is rejected bid for purchase and delivery of jet skis for 2021, rebid number 2. I don't believe we've received any bids for this.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Passed and carried.
Resolution 2021-1220 is accept a negative declaration for the Montauk Skate Park renovations, where the town has developed plans for the renovation and expansion of the skate park known as the Laura Simonson Skate Park, whereas the proposed project is an unlisted action pursuant to the New York State Environmental Quality Review Act. The town board has reviewed the environmental assessment and is considered the same, whereas now the town board hereby issues a negative declaration pursuant to Secret Chapter 128 and Chapter 128 of the East Hampton Town Code.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Passed and carried.
Resolution 2021-1221 is to retain historical preservationist consultant Robert Hefner. This is for the continuation for his assistance with the third phase for the second house restoration. An hourly rate of $100 per hour, not to exceed $30,000, based on his March 15, 2021 proposal.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Passed and carried.
Resolution 2021-1222 needs to be withdrawn at this time.
Second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Passed and carried.
Resolution 2021-1223 is to appoint provisional environmental analyst in the planning department, Eleni Nikolopoulos. She meets the required qualifications for the position. Eleni is hereby appointed on a provisional basis to the full-time position of environmental analyst in the planning department at the hourly rate of $29.45 at an annual salary of $61,257.25.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Passed and carried.
Resolution 2021-1224 is to adopt the 2022 Section 8 Annual Plan. We had a public hearing on October 7th, 2021. The town board was available to receive comments regarding the said plan, and none were received. The town board hereby adopts the plan as heard and authorizes the Director of Housing to execute any and all documents related to the adoption of the plan.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Passed and carried.
Resolution 2021-1225 is the correction of a resolution. The last line of the resolution 2021-1170 is amended that all additional costs at $17,348 shall be paid from a community development block grant. And this is for the rehab of 19 Joshua Edwards Court House. So there was just the wrong number was put in. And so we need to make sure it's the $17,348.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye, passed and carried. Next up, we have Resolution 2021-1226. This is notice of public hearing agreement with Sag Harbor Village 2022 Fire Protection Ambulance Services, and that is to be held on November 18th at 11 a.m.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, passed and carried. Resolution 1227 is to approve lease amendment for AT&T 411 Wainscott Northwest Road.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, passed and carried. 1228 is to return of LOA, East Hampton Town Police Officer William Hamilton. And this is resolved that Mr. Hamilton has returned from leave of absence effective retroactive October 26th to attend the Suffolk County Police Department Academy.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, passed and carried. 1229 is a budget modification. Supervisor, this is $41 from health insurance buyback to $41 in telephone.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, passed and carried. 1230 is budget modification, Finance Department. This is moving $1,200 from office expense to overtime in the same amount.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, passed and carried. 1231 is a budget modification, Fire Marshal's Office, moving $50 from office expense to uniforms in the same amount.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, passed and carried. Resolution 1232 is a budget modification for civil defense. This is appropriated unreserved surplus in the amount of $14,500 to other equipment in the same amount.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, passed and carried. 1233 is to approve staging equipment for the Department of Transportation drainage project in Amagansett. This would allow for the contractor, Coastal Contracting Incorporated, to use a 150 by 150 foot staging area for trucks, a backhoe, and other supplies while they work on drainage along the Route 27 areas in Montauk. I'm sorry, in Amagansett.
Second.
In favor?
Aye.
Passed and carried. 1234 is to authorize a letter of intent to participate in Suffolk County FRES floodplain management.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Passed and carried. 1235 is the auction of a boat, Absolute Auctions, and this is resolved that Absolute Auctions and Realty is hereby retained to auction the vessel described as 45-foot Key West Expedition 2 fishing boat with 2 Detroit diesels on their auction site. This was a vessel that the town had to remove due to hazardous conditions where it had gone aground, and this is to help recoup the costs incurred.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Passed carried. 1236 is to authorize temporary use of Panago Place parking lot. This is for Dr. Gail Schoenfeld, who's a local pediatrician who practices at 200 Panago Place, who will be offering a vaccination clinic for children 5 to 12 years old, November 13th, and the use of the Panago Place ball fields is being extended to act as overflow parking for that date.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Passed and carried. I have a walk-on resolution ID 26828. This is for a notice of public hearing to opt out of cannabis retail dispensaries and on-site consumption sites. As we discussed in multiple town board work sessions, the town has the opportunity to opt out while we put together regulations that are specific to our community with community's input. And that would allow us to opt back in at any time in the future. However, if we don't opt out before December 31st, we will automatically be included in the communities that have unrestricted distribution and dispensary sites.
Second.
And that, by the way, that hearing will be on November 18th at 11 a.m. We need to amend that to reflect 11 a.m. instead of 10. So we have a second as amended.
Second is amended.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye, passed and carried. I'll entertain a motion to go into executive session.
Motion to go into exec for personnel and land and real estate purchases.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
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 Passed and carried. Stay safe and be well, everyone. I will send the Zoom link shortly for the exec session.